Leaving home too soon. Have you ever felt tired of learning English? Like no matter how hard you try, nothing really sticks. Have you ever thought about giving up, closing the book, turning off the video, and telling yourself, maybe English is not for me? This video is not here to teach you grammar rules or difficult vocabulary. This video is here to sit next to you, quietly, and tell you a story. A real story. My story in the United States. A story about leaving home early, learning responsibility too soon, falling in love, building a family, and learning English slowly, through life itself. If you are exhausted, confused, or almost quitting, maybe this story is exactly what you need today. I still remember the day I first understood that Americans leave home very early. It was not from a textbook. It was not from the news. It was a random conversation in a small kitchen in the United States. Someone casually said, "I moved out when I was 18. The tone was calm. Normal. Like saying, "I like coffee." My brain stopped for a second. 18. Move out. Live alone. Pay rent. Handle life. At that moment, I smiled politely, but inside my head, everything was loud. In my culture, 18 is still very young. You still eat your parents' food. You still sleep in your childhood room. Responsibility comes slowly. But in America, responsibility arrives early. Very early. When I first arrived in the US, I thought learning English would be my biggest challenge. I was wrong. English was difficult, yes, but responsibility was heavier. Much heavier. The weather was the first teacher. The first American winter hit me hard. Cold air that felt sharp, like it could cut your skin. Snow that looked beautiful in movies but dangerous in real life. No one reminded me to wear warm clothes. No one waited for me. If I forgot my gloves, my hands paid the price. America does not slow down because you are new. Life keeps moving, and you must move with it. That was when I started to understand why Americans move out early. The environment trains them. The system expects it. Society quietly says, "You are responsible now." Not in a loud voice. Not with anger. Just facts. Bills arrive on time. Rent is due every month. If you don't work, you don't eat. Simple. Harsh. Clear. And strangely honest. At first, my English was slow. Very slow. I could understand basic sentences, but real conversations felt like fast trains passing by. People talked about insurance, taxes, utilities, credit scores, words that were not in my English books. But life does not wait for your vocabulary to improve. So I learned English the American way. Slowly. From real life. From mistakes. From asking stupid questions. "Sorry, can you say that again?" became my daily sentence. And guess what? People repeated. Life continued. I survived. Living in America taught me something powerful. Responsibility is not punishment. Responsibility is training. Scientists say that when humans face real consequences, the brain becomes more alert and focused. You remember things better when your survival depends on it. That is exactly how I learned English. Not by memorizing lists, but by needing words. Needing sentences. Needing understanding. When your electricity might be cut off, you suddenly remember the word bill. When you need a job, you remember how to introduce yourself. Fear becomes fuel. I noticed that Americans don't romanticize struggle. They accept it. Many young Americans leave home early not because they want to suffer, but because independence is part of the culture. Parents believe that love also means letting go. It sounds cold, but it creates strong adults. When you fall, you learn how to stand up alone. And when you finally succeed, the confidence is real. There were nights when I felt extremely lonely. Quiet rooms. Cold windows. My phone screen glowing with messages from home. I asked myself, why am I here? This question came many times. Especially when English failed me. When I could not express my feelings clearly. But slowly, I realized something important. Loneliness is also a teacher. It forces you to listen, to think, to grow. And strangely, it makes you braver. This was the beginning of my American story. Before love. Before marriage. Before children. Before feeling at home. This was the stage where life asked me one simple question. Are you ready to be responsible for yourself? Not tomorrow. Not later. Now. If you are learning English and feeling tired, maybe you are not lazy. Maybe you are just missing connection. Language is not only words. It is life. It is weather. It is culture. It is pain. It is growth. And in this story, English is not the hero. You are. Take a deep breath. You are still here. That means you are already stronger than you think. My first American winter. Have you ever stepped outside and felt the air tell you, without words, that life is not joking today? Not the soft kind of cold that makes you cozy, but the kind that goes straight through your jacket, into your bones, and whispers, you should have prepared better. My first American winter was like that. It did not welcome me. It tested me. And somehow, it taught me more English, responsibility, and emotional strength than any classroom ever could. Back home, winter was a season. In America, winter felt like a personality. It arrived early, stayed long, and demanded respect. The first snow looked magical. White streets. Quiet mornings. I took photos, smiled, sent them to friends. But beauty has a price. The next morning, the temperature dropped so low that my breath felt heavy. My car door was frozen. The sidewalk was slippery. No one cancelled work. No one slowed down. America doesn't pause for weather. It expects you to adapt. That morning, I learned my first winter lesson. Responsibility starts before comfort. I woke up earlier, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. I checked the weather. I layered clothes. I learned new English words fast. Black ice, wind chill, snowstorm warning. These were not vocabulary for exams. These were survival words. And when words matter, your brain remembers them. You know what's funny? Cold weather makes everything honest. There is no pretending. If your shoes are not good, your feet will suffer. If your heating bill is unpaid, your house will remind you all night. If your English is weak, misunderstandings happen quickly. Winter exposes your gaps. And that exposure hurts, but it also teaches. During that first winter, I noticed how Americans handled it. Calm. Prepared. Almost emotionless. Snow shovel in the trunk. Extra food at home. A quiet understanding that hardship is normal. This attitude shocked me. In my culture, we complain together. We share discomfort. In America, people prepare privately. Responsibility here is quiet. Invisible. But powerful. Learning English. During winter felt slower, but deeper. Conversations became shorter. More practical. Less small talk. People spoke clearly because cold makes everyone impatient. This helped me. Short sentences. Clear meanings. I started copying that style. Simple English. Real English. No fancy words. Just what works. There were evenings when the sun disappeared too early. 4:30 p.m. felt like night. My room felt smaller. My thoughts felt louder. Scientists say winter affects the brain. Less sunlight can lower motivation and energy. I felt that. Some days, I did not want to study English. Not because it was hard, but because my mind felt heavy. That's when I almost quit. Again. But winter also gave me time. Quiet time. No noise. No distractions. I played English videos slowly. I listened, paused, repeated. I talked to myself. Out loud. Mistakes everywhere. No one judging. Just me, the cold, and the language. That repetition changed something. My confidence grew quietly. Like roots under frozen ground. Responsibility during winter is different. You don't feel brave. You feel careful. You learn to plan meals. To budget heating costs. To check your car battery. To read instructions carefully. English stopped being a subject and became a tool. When your pipes might freeze, you read manuals. When roads close, you read announcements. Understanding English meant safety. One night, after a long snowy day, I stood by the window and realized something important. Winter was not trying to break me. It was shaping me. Just like responsibility. Just like learning English. Slow pressure. Daily effort. No applause. But real growth. This is why many Americans move out early. Because the environment demands adulthood. Weather doesn't care about your age. Bills don't ask about your feelings. Responsibility arrives whether you are ready or not. And if you survive it, you grow fast. That winter ended eventually. Snow melted. Days became longer. But I was not the same person. My English was still imperfect, but my mind was stronger. I trusted myself more. I knew I could adapt. I knew I could learn. Not fast. But honestly. If you are struggling now, learning English, feeling stuck, feeling cold inside. Maybe you are in your own winter. And that's okay. Winter does not mean failure. It means preparation. Growth happens quietly first. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to stay. Culture shock at 18. Imagine being 18 years old and someone casually asks you, "So where do you live now?" You answer with your parents' address, and they look at you, not rude, not surprised, just slightly confused. That was my experience in the United States. At 18, many Americans don't just plan to move out. They already have apartment keys, rent contracts, part-time jobs, adult problems, adult decisions. When I first realized this, my brain did a small reboot. Because in my world, 18 still means being taken care of. In America, it often means taking care of yourself. This culture shock didn't arrive loudly. It arrived quietly, through small conversations. A coworker talked about roommates and rent. A classmate complained about utilities, bills. Someone mentioned student loans like they were talking about the weather. Normal. Every day. My English could understand the words, but my mind struggled with the meaning. Why so early? Why so fast? Why push young people into responsibility before they fully understand life? Then I started observing more carefully. Americans don't see moving out as abandonment. They see it as a transition, a rite of passage, a signal that says, "I trust you to try." Parents help at first, emotionally, sometimes financially, but they step back on purpose. Psychologists often say that early independence can build problem-solving skills and resilience. In theory, it sounds nice. In real life, it feels scary. At 18, the American brain is still developing. Scientists say the part responsible for long-term planning isn't fully mature yet. And still, society says, "Here's the rent, here's the responsibility, good luck." That contradiction fascinated me. It felt risky. But it also explained something important. Americans learn adulthood by doing, not waiting. When I compared this to my own background, the contrast was sharp. Back home, family is a safety net. You fall, someone catches you. In America, family is more like a lighthouse. They guide you, but they don't swim for you. If you drift, you correct your direction. That difference changes how people grow. My English learning was affected by this shock more than I expected. Conversations were practical, not emotional. People talked about schedules, deadlines, and costs. Feelings were there, but not always shared openly. I had to learn how to communicate clearly, directly, and efficiently. Long explanations didn't work. Simple sentences did. I need help. I can't afford this. I don't understand. These phrases became powerful. At first, I felt behind. Not just in English, but in life. People my age felt more confident. They knew how to call landlords, how to negotiate bills, how to solve problems without asking permission. Meanwhile, I hesitated, overthought, waited. Responsibility in America doesn't wait for confidence. It creates it through pressure. There was a moment that stayed with me. I met an 18-year-old who worked 2 jobs and studied part-time. Tired eyes. Calm voice. No complaints. I asked, carefully, "Isn't it hard?" He shrugged and said, "It's life." That sentence was simple English, but it carried heavy meaning. Life, here, is not something you prepare for forever. You step into it, even if you're not ready. Culture shock isn't just confusion. It's identity shaking. I asked myself, who am I without my family nearby? Without familiar systems? Without emotional support in my native language? That discomfort pushed me inward. And strangely, it helped my English. When you have fewer emotional shortcuts, you rely on clarity. You choose words carefully. You listen more. Learning English in this environment was like learning to swim in open water. No walls. No shallow end. But your body adapts. Your mind adapts. Slowly. Repetition. Mistakes. Survival. Over time, fear becomes familiarity. I realized something important. Americans move out early not because they are stronger than others, but because their culture trains them early. Responsibility is normalized. Failure is expected. Independence is valued. And language follows culture. English, in this context, becomes direct, functional, efficient. If you are learning English and feel lost, maybe it's not about intelligence. Maybe it's about adjustment. New language, new values, new expectations. That's a lot. Your brain isn't broken. It's adapting. Culture shock is uncomfortable because it forces growth. And growth never feels polite. 18, in America, is not the end of childhood. It's the beginning of accountability. And once you understand that, many things start to make sense. Including why responsibility, not motivation, is what truly moves people forward. You don't need to rush. But you do need to step forward. Why parents let go early. Have you ever wondered what it feels like for a parent to let their child walk into the world alone, knowing they might fall? Not because the parent doesn't care, but because they care enough to step back. In America, I learned that love often looks like distance. Not cold distance. Intentional distance. The kind that says, I believe you can handle this. Even when no one is completely sure. When I first saw American parents encouraging their children to move out early, my instinct was to judge. Quietly, of course. I thought, how can they do that? Aren't they worried? In my culture, parents hold on longer. They guide every step. They protect, remind, repeat. In America, parents prepare and then release. It felt risky. Almost cruel. Until I understood the reason behind it. One evening, I sat at a dinner table with an American family. The conversation was light. Casual. Then the mother mentioned that her daughter was moving out. Next month. 18 years old. New apartment. New job. I expected sadness. Tears. Worry. Instead, I saw pride. Calm pride. The father nodded and said, "She'll figure it out." That sentence stayed with me. She'll figure it out. Not we'll fix it. Not we'll step in. Just trust. Psychologists often talk about something called self-efficacy, the belief that you can handle challenges. American parents seem to build this belief early. They allow small failures, missed deadlines, bad decisions, because mistakes at 18 are cheaper than mistakes at 40. Responsibility, here, is taught through experience, not lectures. This parenting style shocked me at first. It felt like throwing someone into deep water and hoping they swim. But then I noticed something important. Parents don't disappear. They stay nearby. Emotionally available. Ready to advise, not control. There's a difference. Advice is optional. Control is not. And that difference shapes how young adults think. Learning English in this environment was deeply connected to this mindset. No one corrected me harshly. No one rushed to finish my sentences. They waited. Let me struggle. Let me find words. At first, that silence felt uncomfortable. Embarrassing. But slowly, it gave me space to grow. Just like American parenting. I realized that when parents let go early, children learn one critical lesson: consequences are real. If rent is late, there's a fee. If you overspend, you adjust. If you fail a class, you retake it. Life responds honestly. And honesty accelerates maturity. There was a moment when I truly understood this philosophy. I watched a young man call his parents after losing his job. He didn't ask for money. He asked for advice. They listened. Asked questions. Gave suggestions. But they didn't rescue him. When the call ended, he looked calmer. Stronger. He had ownership of his problem. That ownership builds confidence faster than comfort ever could. For me, this was a hard lesson. I was used to emotional cushioning. Soft landings. But in America, the ground is firmer. You learn to bend your knees. You learn balance. You learn language through necessity. When you must explain a problem clearly, English becomes sharper. When you must ask for help precisely, words matter more. Some people criticize this system. They say it creates stress, anxiety, pressure. And they're not wrong. But pressure also creates diamonds, if there's support nearby. American parents don't abandon. They reposition. From managers to mentors. From protectors to observers. This shift also explains why Americans value responsibility so deeply. It's not forced. It's expected. And expectations shape behavior. When society expects you to be capable, you try harder to be capable. Motivation comes later. Responsibility comes first. I asked myself a difficult question during this phase. What if my parents had let go earlier? Would I have grown faster? Learned English sooner? Become braver? There's no clear answer. But I know this: once responsibility becomes yours, excuses lose power. If you are learning English and feeling stuck, Maybe you're waiting for motivation to arrive. But motivation is unpredictable. Responsibility is reliable. Show up. Practice. Even when it's uncomfortable. Especially then. American parents let go early, not because they don't love their children, but because they believe love should build strength, not dependence. That belief shapes culture, language, life. And once you see it clearly, you understand, letting go is not loss. It's trust. Living alone changed me. Have you ever walked into a quiet room and felt like the silence was watching you back? Not peaceful silence. The kind that asks questions. Living alone in America did that to me. It didn't shout. It didn't explain. It simply waited. And somehow, that waiting changed who I was, how I thought, how I acted, and how I learned English in ways I never expected. The first place I lived alone was small. Too small, maybe. Thin walls. Old heater. A kitchen that felt more like a corner than a room. When I closed the door at night, the quiet was immediate. No footsteps. No voices. No one asking how my day was. At first, I enjoyed it. Freedom tastes good in the beginning. You eat when you want. Sleep when you want. Nobody tells you what to do. But freedom without structure becomes heavy very fast. Living alone introduced me to a new teacher, routine. Not the motivational kind. The survival kind. If I didn't clean, the mess stayed. If I didn't cook, I stayed hungry. If I didn't plan, things fell apart quietly. There was no drama. Just consequences. Psychologists say the brain learns faster when feedback is immediate. Living alone is pure feedback. Every choice answers back. This was when responsibility stopped being an idea and became a habit. I stopped asking, do I feel like doing this, and started asking, what needs to be done? That question sounds simple. It's not. It rewires how you live. And it changed how I learned English. When you live alone, you talk to yourself more than you realize. Out loud. In your head. Planning. Arguing. Reflecting. My English entered that private space. I practiced sentences while cooking. Repeated phrases while showering. Explained my own problems to myself in broken English. No audience. No pressure. Just repetition. Scientists call this self-directed speech, and it helps organize thoughts and build language. I didn't know the term then. I just knew it worked. Living alone also forced me to face emotions without distraction. Loneliness didn't hide behind noise anymore. It sat next to me on the couch. At first, I tried to escape it. Music. Videos. Endless scrolling. But silence always returned. And with it, thoughts. Regrets. Doubts. That's when something surprising happened. I started writing. Short notes. Simple English. About my day. About what I felt. Not to be good. Just to be honest. Writing slowed my mind down. It gave shape to emotions. And it quietly improved my English. I noticed how Americans treat living alone as a normal phase, not a failure. It's not seen as being lonely. It's seen as learning yourself. That perspective matters. When you believe something is training, not punishment, you endure it differently. Responsibility becomes less scary when you understand its purpose. There were practical lessons too. Bills taught math. Cooking taught planning. Calling customer service taught patience and listening skills. English on the phone is different. No facial expressions. No gestures. Just sound. At first, I panicked. Then I learned to breathe, listen carefully, and ask for clarification. Could you repeat that, please, became a powerful sentence again. Each call made me a little braver. Living alone also exposed my excuses. When something went wrong, there was no one else to blame. That's uncomfortable. But it's also freeing. You gain control the moment you accept responsibility. Studies show that people who feel in control of their actions experience less stress long-term. Short-term discomfort. Long-term strength. Some nights were hard, especially during winter. The heat and noise. The quiet ticking of time. I questioned my choices. Why this path? Why this country? Why this language? But every morning, I woke up and did small things anyway. Made coffee. Opened the window. Reviewed a few English sentences. Tiny actions. Consistency, not motivation, carried me forward. Living alone taught me that independence is not about being strong all the time. It's about being honest with yourself when you're not. It's about learning to sit with discomfort without running away. That skill transferred directly to learning English. I stopped avoiding difficult listening. I stopped quitting halfway. I stayed longer in the confusion. And clarity eventually followed. There's a strange confidence that grows when you know you can handle your own life. Even imperfectly. That confidence changes how you speak. Your voice steadies. Your sentences become clearer. Not because your grammar is perfect, but because your thoughts are. If you're learning English and living alone, or feeling alone, you're not failing. You're training. This phase is shaping you quietly. The silence is not empty. It's working. Living alone didn't make me lonely forever. It made me ready. Ready for love. Ready for partnership. Ready for responsibility beyond myself. And that's where the story goes next. Love grows from responsibility. Have you ever noticed how love feels different when you are no longer depending on someone to save you? Not the dramatic kind of love from movies, but the quiet kind that shows up when two people are already standing on their own feet. That was something I didn't understand before living in America. I thought love came first, and responsibility followed. I was wrong. For me, responsibility came first. Love grew from it. Before that, I believed love was about sharing dreams, feelings, and promises. And it is. But in real life, especially in America, love is also about showing up when it's inconvenient. Paying bills on time. Planning the week. Having hard conversations without running away. Responsibility doesn't make love colder. It makes it real. I met my partner during a phase when my life was finally stable, still imperfect, but mine. I lived alone. I paid my own rent. I handled my own problems. That independence changed how I connected with another person. I didn't look for rescue. I looked for partnership. That difference matters more than people realize. In American culture, relationships often move differently. People ask practical questions early. What do you do? Where do you live? What are your plans? At first, this felt unromantic to me. But I learned that these questions are not about judging. They're about compatibility. Responsibility is attractive here. Not wealth. Not status. Reliability. Learning English inside a relationship was another lesson. Conversations were slower. More intentional. We explained things. Clarified meanings. Laughed at misunderstandings. Love gave me a safe space to practice language without fear. And responsibility made sure I practiced consistently. Neuroscience shows that emotional safety improves learning. When you feel accepted, your brain opens. Love became my language classroom. But love also exposed my weaknesses. Miscommunication caused conflict. Cultural differences created confusion. In my culture, silence can mean respect. In America, silence often means avoidance. I had to learn to speak up. Clearly. Calmly. English forced honesty. You can't hide behind vague words when the language is simple. There was a moment during an argument when I realized how much responsibility mattered. Instead of blaming or withdrawing, we paused. We talked about expectations. About money. About future plans. It wasn't romantic. It was necessary. And that conversation strengthened our bond more than any sweet words could. Psychologists say long-term relationships survive not because of constant passion, but because of shared responsibility. Shared routines. Shared goals. Shared effort. I saw that clearly in America. Love here is not just a feeling. It's a system. And systems require maintenance. My English improved in surprising ways through love. Everyday phrases. Emotional vocabulary. Conflict language. I feel, I need, I didn't understand that. These sentences are simple, but powerful. They create connection. Practicing them in real situations made them stick forever. Responsibility also taught me boundaries. Love does not mean losing yourself. Two responsible people respect time, space, and energy. In America, this is valued. Independence inside a relationship is not seen as distance. It's seen as health. That idea took time for me to accept. But once I did, everything felt lighter. There were challenges, of course. Balancing work, language learning, and emotional energy was exhausting. Some days, I wanted to quit English again. But love reminded me why I stayed. Not because I needed approval, but because I wanted a shared future that required communication. I learned that responsibility creates trust. Trust creates safety. Safety allows love to deepen. And deep love supports growth. It's a cycle. A quiet one. No drama. No grand speeches. Just daily choices. If you are learning English and dreaming of love, don't rush the romance. Build your foundation first. Take responsibility for your life. Even in small ways. Love will meet you there. Because real love doesn't carry you. It walks with you. Marriage without parents nearby. Have you ever tried to build something important without an instruction manual, without people standing behind you, ready to fix mistakes the moment they appear? Marriage in America felt exactly like that to me. No parents nearby. No daily advice. No one reminding us how things should be done. Just two adults, a shared space, and a quiet question hanging in the air every day. Can you handle this together? Getting married without family close was one of the biggest emotional shifts of my life. In my culture, marriage is never just two people. It's parents, relatives, traditions, opinions, and constant involvement. In the US, marriage often becomes a private agreement. Support exists, yes, but from a distance. Freedom increases. So does responsibility. At first, that freedom felt uncomfortable. There was no one to step in during disagreements. No one to translate emotions when words failed. Every conflict belonged to us. Every solution too. Psychologists say couples grow stronger when they solve problems independently, because it builds shared resilience. I didn't know the theory then. I lived the practice. Language played a surprising role. English was the only bridge between us. No shortcuts. No emotional hiding. When you don't have parents nearby to soften things, clarity becomes survival. I had to explain how I felt in simple words. Not perfect words. Honest ones. I'm tired. I'm overwhelmed. I need help. These sentences carried weight. And using them daily improved my English. More than any lesson. Marriage in America also revealed how much responsibility shapes love. Bills don't care about romance. Schedules don't pause for feelings. You learn quickly that love survives on structure. Shared calendars. Divided chores. Clear communication. It sounds boring. It's not. It's stabilizing. There were moments when I wished for parental guidance. Especially during misunderstandings rooted in culture. In my background, patience is shown through silence. In American culture, silence can feel like distance. We had to learn each other's emotional languages while still learning English. That double learning was exhausting, but powerful. Without parents nearby, you become your own reference point. You decide what kind of marriage you want. What traditions you keep. What habits you drop. Responsibility moves from inherited rules to conscious choices. That shift changes you. You stop asking, what would they think, and start asking, what actually works for us. Scientists often talk about adult attachment, the ability to feel secure without constant reassurance. Living far from family accelerated that process for me. There was no emotional safety net close by. So we built one together. Slowly. Through consistency. Through showing up, even on boring days. English continued to grow quietly in this phase. Conversations about finances introduced. Practical vocabulary. Discussions about future plans sharpened clarity. Conflict taught tone control. Marriage became my advanced English course, not because the language was complex, but because the emotions were real. Some days were heavy. Work stress. Language fatigue. Cultural misunderstandings. There were moments when giving up felt tempting, not on the marriage, but on English. But responsibility doesn't allow escape easily. You still have to talk. Decide. Explain. So you practice. Again and again. I noticed something interesting about American couples. Many value independence inside marriage. Personal space. Personal goals. This doesn't weaken connection. It strengthens respect. That idea was new to me. But it made sense. Two complete individuals. Choosing each other daily, not out of need, but intention. Marriage without parents nearby forced maturity. Fast. You learn to regulate emotions. To apologize clearly. To listen without preparing a defense. These skills improved not only my relationship, but my English listening comprehension too. When you listen emotionally, you hear language better. There's a quiet confidence that grows when you realize, we handled this ourselves. No witnesses. No applause. Just progress. That confidence seeps into everything, including how you speak. Your voice steadies. Your sentences become firmer. Not louder. Clearer. If you are learning English and dreaming of marriage or partnership, understand this. Language is not just for romance. It's for responsibility. For planning. For resolving tension. For building a life when no one else is watching. Marriage without parents nearby taught me that love is not supported by presence, it's supported by commitment. Daily. Intentional. Responsible. And once you learn that, you're ready for something even bigger. Raising kids the American way. Have you ever watched a small child struggle with something simple and felt the strong urge to step in immediately? To fix it? To protect them from frustration? Raising kids in America taught me to pause in that moment. To breathe. To let discomfort do its quiet work. Because here, parenting is not about removing every obstacle. It's about teaching children how to face them. When we became parents, I thought love would automatically show me the right way. It didn't. Love showed me how much responsibility multiplies when another life depends on you. In America, raising children comes with an invisible expectation. Prepare them to stand alone. Not emotionally distant. Just capable. I noticed this early. American parents encourage children to make choices sooner. Small ones at first. What to wear. What to eat. How to solve a problem before asking for help. It looks ordinary, but it builds something. Powerful, decision-making confidence. Psychologists say autonomy in childhood strengthens problem-solving skills later in life. I saw it happen daily. This parenting style challenged me. My instinct was to guide more, explain more, protect more. But the culture gently pushed back. Teachers asked children to speak for themselves. Coaches expected responsibility. Even playdates had rules about independence. Kids learned boundaries early. And so did I. Raising kids in this environment forced my English to level up again. School emails. Parent-teacher meetings. Doctor appointments. All in English. All important. There was no room for guessing. I had to understand clearly. Ask questions confidently. Advocate for my child. Responsibility sharpened my listening. Skills fast. At home, language learning continued naturally. Reading bedtime stories. Explaining emotions. Answering endless why questions. Simple words. Repeated often. This repetition helped both my child and me. Neuroscience shows that teaching others reinforces learning. My English improved because I used it daily with purpose. American parenting also emphasizes emotional responsibility. Children are encouraged to name feelings. I'm angry. I'm sad. I'm frustrated. These words matter. They create self-awareness. I learned alongside my child. Naming emotions reduced conflict. In language learning, clarity reduces anxiety. The same principle applies. There were moments when this approach felt cold to me. Letting a child struggle. Watching them fail. But I learned that failure here is not shameful. It's instructional. Small failures teach resilience. And resilience is valued more than perfection. Raising kids without extended family nearby added another layer. No grandparents dropping by. No constant help. We had to plan carefully. Communicate clearly. Support each other consistently. Parenting became a team effort built on structure. Schedules. Routines. Clear roles. It wasn't romantic. It was effective. English became the operating system of our household. Not poetic. Functional. Clear instructions. Calm corrections. Encouraging words. Over time, my confidence grew. Speaking English while tired, emotional, or stressed is different. But that's real life. And real life is the best teacher. I noticed how American kids are encouraged to speak up. Respectfully. To ask questions. To express opinions. This openness impressed me. It also challenged my cultural instincts. I learned to listen differently. To value directness. To see it as honesty. Not disrespect. Responsibility in parenting showed me something important. Motivation follows structure. Children don't wake up motivated to do homework. Adults don't wake up motivated to practice. English. Structure creates consistency. Consistency creates results. Some days were overwhelming. Balancing work, parenting, and language learning felt impossible. But responsibility doesn't ask if you're ready. It simply arrives. And you grow into it. Slowly. Imperfectly. Honestly. Raising kids in America taught me that independence is not abandonment. It's preparation. Children are not pushed away. They are guided forward. And language is part of that guidance. Clear communication builds trust. Trust builds confidence. If you are learning English while raising a family, or dreaming of one, remember this, your progress doesn't need to be fast. It needs to be real. Use the language in your life. With your children. With your partner. With yourself. Because responsibility doesn't steal your freedom. It creates it, for you and for the next generation. English learned from real life. Have you ever studied a language for years, yet still freeze when someone asks you a simple question in real life? Not because you don't know the words, but because your brain panics. That used to be me. I thought English lived in books, videos, and classrooms. Real life in America taught me something very different. English lives in moments when you have no script. I didn't learn English because I loved grammar. I learned it because life demanded it. Slowly. Relentlessly. Honestly. Every day in America became a lesson, whether I was ready or not. And that changed everything. At first, I tried the traditional way. Vocabulary lists. Listening practice. Repeating after videos. It helped, but only a little. The real progress came when English stopped being a subject and started being a tool. When language became necessary, not optional, my brain paid attention. Real life English is messy. People speak fast. They interrupt. They change topics. They use slang. They don't wait for you to understand. That used to scare me. But over time, fear turned into familiarity. Not comfort. Familiarity. And that was enough. I learned English at grocery stores. Reading labels. Comparing prices. Asking questions. Is this on sale? Where can I find this? Short sentences. Clear purpose. My confidence grew with each successful exchange. Neuroscientists say small wins release dopamine, reinforcing learning. Grocery shopping became my language lab. I learned English at work. Meetings. Emails. Casual conversations. By the coffee machine. I listened more than I spoke at first. Observed patterns. Copied phrases. Real English repeats itself. Once I noticed that, learning became easier. People say the same things. Again and again, just with different faces. I learned English through mistakes. Wrong words. Awkward pauses. Misunderstandings. Instead of embarrassment, I started seeing mistakes as feedback. Immediate feedback. The brain loves feedback. It corrects faster when the consequence is real. When someone looks confused, you adjust. When they understand, you remember. Family life accelerated my learning. Explaining schedules. Discussing plans. Solving problems. English entered emotional spaces. And language sticks better when emotion is involved. That's science. Emotional engagement strengthens memory. Every serious conversation sharpened my English naturally. I also learned the rhythm of American English. Short sentences, direct messages, clear intentions. In America, clarity is kindness. This was new to me. I learned to stop over-explaining. To trust simple words. I need help. I can't make it. Let's talk later. These sentences carry weight. Listening improved when I stopped trying to understand everything. I focused on key words. Tone. Context. The brain fills gaps surprisingly well when you relax. Anxiety blocks comprehension. Responsibility forced me to relax. There was no time to panic. I practiced speaking alone too. Driving. Showering. Cooking. I described what I was doing. Planned my day out loud. Reflected in English. Self-talk feels strange at first. But it organizes thoughts and strengthens fluency. Athletes use visualization. Language learners can use verbalization. Reading real-life materials helped. More than textbooks. Emails. Notices. Instructions. Messages. Short. Practical. Relevant. The brain learns faster when information feels useful. That's why real life works better than theory. I noticed that Americans don't judge accents as much as learners fear. They value clarity more than perfection. Once I understood that, my confidence increased. I spoke more. Made more mistakes. Improved faster. Learning English through real life also taught patience. Progress wasn't linear. Some days were great. Others felt like going backward. But responsibility kept me consistent. I showed up because I had to. Consistency beats motivation every time. If you are struggling with English, maybe you're trying to learn it in isolation. Language is social, emotional, practical. It needs life to stick. Bring English into your daily routine. Small moments. Repeated often. You don't need to sound native. You need to be understood. And understanding grows with use. Real life doesn't wait for perfect English. And that's exactly why it teaches so well. When I almost gave up. Have you ever reached a point where you didn't fail loudly, but quietly? Not quitting dramatically, not throwing books away, just slowly losing the will to continue. That was the moment I almost gave up on English. Not because it was impossible, but because I was tired of always being almost enough. By that time, I had been living in the United States. 4 years. I could communicate. I could survive. On the surface, everything looked fine. But inside, something felt heavy. Conversations still required effort. Jokes sometimes passed me by. Emotional discussions drained me faster than they should have. I wasn't stuck at the beginning. I was stuck in the middle. And the middle is the hardest place to stay motivated. Psychologists call this the plateau effect. Early progress feels exciting. Later progress feels invisible. Your brain craves improvement, but can't see it clearly. That's when doubt appears. Why am I still struggling? Shouldn't this be easier by now? Those questions haunted me. The pressure wasn't just about language. Life responsibilities were stacking up. Work expectations, family needs, parenting, marriage, bills. Time felt scarce. English practice became the first thing I wanted to cut. I already know enough, I told myself. That sentence is dangerous. It sounds reasonable, but it hides avoidance. There was a night when exhaustion hit hard. Everyone was asleep. The house was quiet. I opened an English video, watched for 2 minutes, and closed it. Not angry. Just empty. That scared me more than frustration. Emptiness means detachment. And detachment is how people quit without noticing. I started avoiding situations that required deeper English. I stayed silent in conversations. Let others lead. Let moments pass. My world slowly shrank. Research shows that avoidance reinforces anxiety. The less you face discomfort, the stronger it becomes. I felt that loop tightening. What pulled me back wasn't inspiration. It was responsibility. The same force that had carried me through winter, loneliness, and parenting. English wasn't optional anymore. It was connected to my family, my work, my future. Quitting English felt like shrinking my life. And I didn't want that. So I changed my approach. I stopped chasing fluency. I chased clarity. One idea at a time. One conversation at a time. I gave myself permission to speak simply again. To sound basic. To be imperfect. That decision lifted a huge weight. Neuroscience shows that reducing cognitive load improves performance. When you stop trying to impress, your brain relaxes. When your brain relaxes, learning returns. I felt that shift almost immediately. I focused on listening more deeply. Not to every word, but to meaning. I asked follow-up questions. I slowed conversations down by being honest. Can you explain that differently? People responded kindly. The fear I carried was mostly imaginary. I also reframed my self-talk. Instead of I'm bad at English, I used I'm still building. Language growth doesn't end. Native speakers grow too. That perspective normalized my struggle. There were still bad days. Days when my tongue felt heavy. When words hid. But I stopped interpreting those days as failure. Fatigue affects language. Stress affects memory. This is biology, not weakness. Responsibility kept me consistent. 10 minutes a day. Real conversations. Real listening. No pressure. Over time, confidence returned, not loudly, but steadily. Almost giving up taught me something essential. The urge to quit often appears right before a breakthrough. Not because success is guaranteed, but because growth is uncomfortable. Your brain resists change, even positive change. If you're close to quitting English, pause. Don't ask if you're motivated. Ask if you're willing to stay a little longer. That's usually enough. Because giving up doesn't always feel dramatic. Sometimes it feels quiet. And quiet decisions shape loud futures. Responsibility creates freedom. Have you ever noticed how the word freedom sounds light, but often feels heavy in real life? People imagine freedom as doing whatever you want, whenever you want. I believed that too. But living in the United States slowly rewired that idea. I learned, the hard way, that freedom doesn't come from having fewer responsibilities. It comes from accepting them fully. For a long time, I thought responsibility was the enemy of happiness. Bills, schedules, commitments, English practice. All of it felt like weight. Something pressing down on my chest. But one day, without warning, I realized something strange. The more responsibility I handled, the calmer my mind became. Not happier every day. Calmer. And calm changes everything. In America, responsibility is everywhere, but it's rarely announced. No one claps when you pay rent on time. No one congratulates you for showing up consistently. But your life responds. Slowly. Quietly. Stability grows. And with stability comes choice. Scientists explain this through something simple. Predictability reduces stress. When your brain knows what to expect, it relaxes. Responsibility creates patterns. Patterns create predictability. Predictability creates mental space. That space is freedom. This hit me hardest when I noticed how my English improved during busy periods, not relaxed ones. When my life had structure, work hours, family routines, learning habits, my language grew. When things were loose and undefined, my English stalled. Motivation came and went. Responsibility stayed. I stopped waiting to feel ready to speak English. I spoke because the situation required it. Doctor appointments. School meetings. Work discussions. Responsibility didn't ask about my confidence. It demanded action. And action slowly built confidence. Freedom, I learned, is not the absence of pressure. It's the ability to function under pressure without falling apart. That ability is trained daily through responsibility. I saw this clearly in American culture. People value independence not because they hate connection, but because independence gives them options. When you can support yourself, you choose relationships, not cling to them. When you can communicate clearly, you participate fully. Language becomes a bridge, not a barrier. My English stopped feeling like a test and started feeling like access. Access to information, to deeper relationships, to better decisions. Responsibility unlocked that access. There was a time when I avoided difficult conversations because English felt limiting. Now, I approach them calmly. Not because my English is perfect, but because I trust myself to manage misunderstandings. Responsibility builds trust in yourself. Psychologists talk about internal locus of control, the belief that your actions influence outcomes. Responsibility strengthens this belief. And when you believe your actions matter, effort feels meaningful. Learning English stopped being a chore and became an investment. I also learned that freedom without responsibility creates anxiety. Too many options. No structure. No progress. That kind of freedom is exhausting. Real freedom feels grounded. It feels earned. Raising a family, managing work, maintaining relationships, all of it required clear communication. English became part of my identity, not a separate task. I didn't ask, should I practice today? I asked, what does today require? And English showed up. Naturally. Responsibility didn't make my life smaller. It made it wider. More stable. More intentional. I could plan. Commit. Build long-term goals. Language fluency grows best in long timelines. Not quick bursts. If you are learning English and feeling trapped, look closely. Maybe it's not responsibility holding you back. Maybe it's the lack of it. Create small commitments. Tiny routines. Show up even when it feels boring. Especially then. Freedom doesn't arrive as excitement. It arrives as quiet confidence. The kind that lets you walk into a conversation without fear. The kind that lets you make decisions without panic. Responsibility is not a cage. It's a foundation. And once you stand on it, the view is much wider than you imagined. Are you ready to leave home? Have you ever asked yourself a question that sounds simple, but quietly changes everything once you answer it honestly? Not the kind of question people ask at parties, but the kind that shows up late at night, when the house is quiet and your mind is loud. Are you ready to be responsible for your own life? Not someday. Not when you feel confident. Now. When I look back at my journey in the United States, I see that everything, moving out early, surviving winter, learning English, falling in love, building a family, was really preparation for that one question. Responsibility was never the goal. It was the doorway. And freedom was on the other side. Americans move out early not because they reject family, but because they accept accountability. That distinction matters. Leaving home is not about distance. It's about ownership. Ownership of choices. Of mistakes. Of growth. And once you own your life, it starts responding differently to you. I used to think responsibility would limit me. That it would make life smaller, heavier, less joyful. The opposite happened. Responsibility simplified my life. Fewer excuses. Clearer priorities. Deeper relationships. My English improved not because I chased perfection, but because I needed clarity. And clarity grows where responsibility lives. There is a psychological truth here that surprised me. When people avoid responsibility, their brains stay in a constant state of uncertainty. Uncertainty creates anxiety. Anxiety drains energy. But when you accept responsibility, even imperfectly, your brain relaxes. It knows what to do next. That calm is powerful. I see many people learning English who feel stuck, not because they lack ability, but because they are waiting for confidence to arrive first. Confidence doesn't arrive first. Responsibility does. Confidence follows action, not the other way around. This is true for language. For love. For life. Leaving home, physically or emotionally, is scary because it removes comfort. But comfort doesn't build capacity. Discomfort does. Small discomfort, repeated daily, builds strength quietly. That's how English grows. That's how adulthood grows. I think about my younger self sometimes. Standing in a small American apartment. Cold air outside. Silence inside. English still fragile. Confidence still forming. If I could speak to that version of me now, I wouldn't give advice. I would ask one question. Are you willing to take responsibility for today? Even if you don't understand tomorrow yet. That's all it ever takes. You don't need to move to another country to answer this question. You don't need to leave your parents' house physically. Responsibility starts internally. Do you show up consistently? Do you practice even when motivation disappears? Do you face confusion instead of avoiding it? These small decisions are the real. Moving out. Learning English is not about sounding impressive. It's about being present. About participating in your own life without fear. When you take responsibility for your learning, English stops being an enemy. It becomes a companion. Sometimes quiet. Sometimes challenging. But always useful. Love, too, changes once responsibility enters. Relationships become partnerships. Not rescues. Communication becomes clearer. Expectations become realistic. Language becomes a bridge, not a test. That's when connection deepens. As a parent, I now understand why Americans let go early. They are not pushing children away. They are pushing them forward. Teaching them that life will not always guide you, but it will always respond to you. And that response depends on what you do. Next. So I'll ask you the same question that life asked me, again and again, in different forms. Are you ready to be responsible? Not perfect. Not fearless. Just responsible enough to take the next small step. If you are still listening to this story, it means something inside you hasn't quit. That matters. You don't need more motivation. You need permission to be imperfect, to be slow. To keep going anyway. Responsibility doesn't mean you won't struggle. It means you won't run. And that choice changes everything. You don't have to leave home all at once. Just leave excuses behind. That's how real growth begins. And now, this story ends here. Not because everything has been explained, but because some things can only be understood when you slow down and truly listen. Maybe you understood every sentence. Maybe you caught the main idea. Or maybe you had to pause, rewind, and listen again. But what truly matters is not how much English you understood today. What matters is that you stayed until the end. You chose to listen to an English story, and you didn't give up. That is how real English skills are built. Not through shortcuts. Not through memorization. But through slow, consistent exposure with emotion and meaning. If today you understood just a little more than yesterday, then your English is already improving. Now ask yourself this question. If you can listen to understand, and feel a story like this in English? How far could you really go? The next stories on this channel will be deeper, slower, more real, and maybe closer to your own life than you expect. Stories about difficult choices, unspoken relationships, silence instead of explanations, and moments when English becomes a bridge of emotion, not just a language. If you truly want to improve English listening, reading, and speaking naturally. If you enjoy learning English through real-life stories. And if you believe that slowing down is not falling behind, then this channel was created for you. Subscribe to stay with us and continue practicing slow, clear, real English. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new listening story. And if this video helped you, even a little, please hit like. It truly supports the channel. Feel free to leave a comment below. How much of the story did you understand? Which sentence made you stop and think? I read every comment. Because your voice helps shape future stories. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for not giving up on your English journey. And I'll see you in the next story, where English feels calm, natural, and human. Not stressful or overwhelming.